If you're about to buy a Tesla Model 3, I think this is going to be a really important video to watch, especially if you're buying a used one. I'm going to run through where you can buy, a bit about all the different variants and options, what goes wrong and what to look out for. If you're looking to buy a new one, I think you'll also find it a useful video, and I will put in the description below a referral code. Click on that link, go through to the Tesla website, configure your car, and that will give you, at the moment, 1,000 free miles of supercharging. So keep watching and we'll give you a complete run through. Where to buy your used Tesla? Well, very quickly, I'll cover off some of the options. One, Tesla themselves. So sometimes they have used inventory stock, sometimes they run out, but it's basically a bit of an anonymous buying process. You can't see the car beforehand either, so you're kind of buying blind, but they do have them. Secondly, private sales, and with the private purchase you can pick up a bargain, but you just got to be really, really careful, of course. You know, the car probably won't be prepared on refurbished wheels and things like that, and you just got to make sure you're being very careful. You're not buying a car with accident damage, and remember, if it's had accident damage in the past and it's been written off, it probably won't supercharge either. Anyway, there's more to discuss on that, but that's probably another video. So private purchase, can get a good deal, just be very careful. And then you've got independent dealers, and I think there's loads of dealers now selling Teslas. I think the difference, especially with us, is just our experience and knowledge, and I think that counts for both checking the car over, and we do a 125-point check on each car, make sure everything is good. We're very transparent about any condition or defects. We refurbish the car where possible, so any marks on the wheels are fully refurbished and the car's looking great. Usually better prepared than all the new ones I've picked up from Tesla, but again, that's another story. And you want to make sure that you're just buying from a professional company that knows their stuff, has checked the cars well. Most of them, unfortunately, won't know a great deal. Everyone's learning, but we've got that unique level of experience here, which will also count for post-sale questions that you may have. You might be doing a long journey and have a question about it. So there's a few options, but we think we're the best. So what qualifies me to give you advice about Model 3s? Well, we buy and sell a lot of them, but I've also been an owner of a Model 3 since the very first day, the first deliveries in the UK. I reserved mine years ago, and I was there on that first day when the first cars arrived. Since then, I've owned and bought and sold hundreds of these things. So there isn't too much we haven't seen, not too much we don't know about. So we're going to start off by giving you a bit of a run through about all the different versions and models over the years. Okay, so we first saw the Model 3 in the UK in June 2019, and there really are 4 models. Most people think there's 3, but there's actually 4. If you look on the used market, there's 4, and they start off with the standard range. It would look like this, which would have aero wheels. So the standard range is a 50 kilowatt hour battery, roughly speaking, rear-wheel drive, and in the real world has a range of just over 200 miles, really. You will see a video that we helped CarWow film where we took a standard range as far as it would go, and we did 220 odd miles. Capable of a bit more if you really try, but in the real world, about 200 miles. And then you've got the long range, which looks a bit like this as well. Nothing to distinguish the exterior of the car, but the long range car, usually badged as dual motor cars, they are one motor at the front, one motor at the back, and a larger battery pack in the region of 75 kilowatt hours. So, as you'd expect, they go a little bit further and they're 4-wheel drive, and they were a bit more expensive to buy new. Real world range on one of those, well, I say from experience about 270 miles, roughly speaking. Quite a lot of factors included with range and distance, but capable of that. I've certainly done that in one, and so they're very good for great distances, and they certainly charge fast as well. And then there's the little known model called the Performance Minus. Tesla never called it that, it was called a Performance like all the others, but it tends to be referred to as the Performance Minus, and it looks a bit like this. As you can tell, all much the same. The Performance Minus, not a lot of people know about this. It wasn't around for long, and basically it's a long range, but with the performance of the Performance model. So the differences are that the long range performance, or the P minus, still looks like this. It didn't have the upgraded wheels and upgraded brakes and some of the other features that you do get on the full performance model. So it seems a bit confusing. Whenever we've had a long range performance minus, we list it and we get lots of emails off the advert from people saying, that's just a long range, you're trying to misadvertise it. Well, it does exist. It has the same 0 to 60 as the full performance one, but it just doesn't have the extras. So when you see performance minus, That's what we're talking about. And then you have the long range performance, the full performance. And so again, the bodywork, they all look much the same, but you can mainly spot these as they have these 20-inch alloy wheels then. They also have slightly lower suspension, some upgraded big brakes, carbon fiber spoiler, some aluminium covers on the pedals, plus track mode. And track mode means you really can track these cars, and I'll show you a bit more about track mode in a moment. And just to add into the mix one more item that confuses some people, you can take a long range and unlock a performance upgrade. Usually go into your app, you pay Tesla £1,500 here in the UK, and it makes a long range a little bit quicker. Not quite as quick as the full performance, but a bit quicker than a normal long range. So how does that translate to performance? Well, that entry-level standard range is still a 0 to 60 in about 5.5 seconds, so it's not a slow car, it's quite fast. The long range with a dual motor, 0 to 60 in a bit over 4 seconds. And the dual motor performance is a 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. Although they shaved that to 3.1 later on with a revision, and we're going to cover that in just a moment. And then remember the unlock for the long range. Well, if you take a normal long range and unlock that performance upgrade, that takes its 0 to 60 down to 3.6. So between the dual motor performance and just the dual motor, somewhere in between the two. All quick cars, all very capable and very enjoyable. And now let's just cover off a couple of what we call refreshes, or slight model changes over the years, where in late 2020 we saw the first of a batch of cars which was termed as the 2021 cars, or refresh cars, and they carried a few changes with them. Now we covered that in another video, so please do, we'll try and add a link, if not we'll try and put a link in the description below to that video highlighting exactly what changed late in 2020 on the cars that arrived in the UK. But predominantly the chrome work was now black around the windows instead of chrome. We had some different wheels for the performance one, some slightly different headlights. One of the biggest changes there though was for the performance models, the battery change. So a refresh 2021 as it's sometimes termed, performance then had the 82 kilowatt hour battery. Just gave it a bit more range basically. And again, there's a video we filmed with CarWow and we managed to get that one nearly 300 miles. So that was pretty good. It carries also quite an important change that affected all of them, which was the heat pump. And the heat pump is there to improve efficiency. So all the models benefited from a heat pump and some range improvement that carries, especially in the colder weather. So then, just to add one more, in 2021, right now, all the new cars since the 1st of March have come from the China factory. So we've then got what we call made in China Model 3s. So a couple of small changes with that. They basically carry the same differences as the refresh at the end of 2020. The made in China cars, again, there's another video we've made for this, so do look on that for more detail, but they can usually be distinguished by the trim from the dashboard, then carries into the door cards. And so, been a couple of changes, but there's not too many variants over the years. For the exterior colours, the first initial default colour was black, but that was quite quickly changed to white, so white became the standard. So you've got pearl white, and we've got a pearl white one here. There's a pearl white one here. Deep blue metallics available as well. Pearl white is available. And there's pearl white. So white will be the most common colour because it's the default. You have to pay extra for the other colours. Other than the white, the blue, there's also black. There's deep metallic, what do they call it? Midnight silver metallic, which is basically grey. And then we also have the most expensive paint colour for an extra £2,000 was multi-coat red. So not too many choices. What about on the inside? On the inside, two choices. Black was the default. If you pay a little bit more, you get the ultra white interior. Now, this isn't leather, neither is the black. It's a very good substitute material. But don't be too scared of the white. It does show the fingerprints, but usually people have a bag of wet wipes in the car. It does always clean up really well. It's proven to be very durable and standing the test of time. So the white is a bold choice, but don't be too scared of it. It does make it really stand out and contrasting. Also with the white, you get the white door cards here and a white section across the dashboard. So now I'm in this standard black interior. Same seat, center console here is all the same. The interior is a little bit darker, as you'd imagine, as a result, but the full length glass roof that all the Model 3s have do counteract that. As you can imagine, the black just doesn't show the marks as easily. It's equally as durable. We've not found any issues with excessive wear on the seats. It does seem to be lasting really well. Instead of the white panel here, we have Alcantara panels which feel really nice. And then we come to the dashboard. So if you have a black interior, it comes with a wooden dashboard. And to me, I don't think that particularly fits in. I'm not that keen on it. Some people love it. I'm not that keen on it. I think it just doesn't really tie in. So it would be good if there was an alternative to that. Fortunately, there is a solution. Have a look at this. This is our Alcantara alternative that we can supply and fit. We've got another video specifically about this dashboard, so do check that out. And that ties in now perfectly with these suede Alcantara door panels. Up until the end of 2020, this is what the center console looked like, and it's a gloss black finish and it can scratch easily, so have a look on here for any excessive scratching. It's quite common to wrap this, and I'll show you a couple of examples of that in a moment. The early cars have a panel here but no mobile phone pad charging. The later cars, I think it was after about the end of 2019, had a wireless charging pad fitted here. The early cars don't, but there's plenty available. They're readily on eBay and Amazon, and fitting a wireless charging pad here and it plugs into the USBs underneath makes a lot of sense. I recommend getting one of those if it doesn't have it, but it's not always there as standard if it's an earlier car. All the Model 3s have a single screen in the center here. Again, check there's no damage to that. Takes a bit of getting used to. You have to kind of work out how to get around the screen, navigate around, but it's good. It's always doing software updates, remember, and the latest version now shows a nice little animation here of everything that's happening with the car and opening doors. So a little bit of getting used to. Your speedo will display here when driving, and I know on a lot of journalist reports they say that you have to look away from the road to see that, but I really don't find it any problem at all. The speedo is straight there. So like anything, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but I find this a really simple system. In all the Model 3s, the latest hardware, it's much faster to use than some of the earlier testers and the Model S's and X. So I'm not going to run through it on this video, but basically as a buyer, just check this is all free of any damage, working as it should do, nice fast responsiveness. It's a totally minimal interior in the Model 3, a stalk here for your drive and enabling autopilot. Other than that, everything from the two buttons on the steering wheel here, including the adjustment of the steering wheel itself and adjusting your speed for autopilot. So again, takes a little bit of getting used to, but I really like just how minimal this interior is. Under the bonnet, we've got the frunk, or the fruit, some people call it. Smaller than the Model S and X. We can't quite fit a mark in here, but it's a nice usable storage space. Sometimes you'll see a mat or waterproof mat in here that people have put in, but quite commonly without as well. You've got some convenient bag hooks here, but on those refresh cars from the end of 2020 onwards, it's changed slightly smaller and does not have these bag hooks. So these 20-inch wheels on the performance models, the earlier ones were silver, then they switched to grey later on. If you prefer one or the other, it's certainly easy to refinish and paint them in different colours. We've done quite a few in black actually, they look nice like that as well. Whilst you're looking at the wheels, buying one, just check there's no damage around here. Obviously they're quite easy to curb. They can buckle as well if you hit a pothole, so you want to just check there's no vibration on the drive. The performance ones also have these Michelin tyres, which are excellent, until the 2021 cars, when they switched the wheel design to the Uber turbines, and they also switched to Pirellis, which, to be honest, I'm not so much of a fan of. I find in the damp and wet, they're not as good as these Michelins. All the Model 3s have folding rear seats to extend the boot space, but they are only a saloon, not a hatchback, so you've got to check that this space is usable for anything you might want to carry in terms of practicality, but it is a pretty good sized boot. Now remember, the new cars now have power tailgates, but the earlier cars until the end of 2020 were manual tailgates. It is possible to fit a power tailgate kit to this though. It is something we can help with, so do contact us if you're looking for one of those. So we said that boot space is quite good. We've actually managed to fit a Mark and a Surge in this car, and if you fold the seats, you could probably get another 2.
Shall we do some differently?
So the standard range and the long range come with these wheels, which are 18-inch and have the aero covers fitted to them. It's quite popular to remove these, a bit like that. If you do that, you need to buy a kit from Tesla, but you can also find them on eBay and Amazon. A hubcap kit it's called, so little caps that cover the nuts and a center cap there. And a lot of people like the wheels looking just like this. Similar to these 20-inch wheels, there is also a 19-inch wheel option, finished in silver by Tesla, so in between the size of the standard aeros and these 20s. And I think they're a really good balance. They tend to be fitted with hand-cooked tyres as standard, which are good, and they have this nice balance between looks and comfortable ride, but still have the efficiency that you lose with these wheels. All the cars up until the end of 2020 had chrome around here. The later ones then became satin black like this as standard, and the same with the door handles. But this car was originally finished with the chrome handles and the frames here, so it is possible to wrap them and dechrome it. Again, it's something we can help you with. So all the Model 3s have a plethora of cameras, I like that word, plethora, around them. So camera at the front, cameras in the wings here, cameras here and camera on the back, and they serve a multitude of functions. So autopilot, which we'll talk to you a little bit more about, the camera at the back for reversing. When you reverse, you can also see the view from the cameras at the sides as well. But in addition to that, you can add a memory device into the car, so a USB stick or SSD drive, and they can actually save little clips from, say, in a car park, somebody damages your car. These cameras can save footage from that incident. Plus, when you're driving, if you're to have an accident or if you beep the horn, it saves the clips onto those memory sticks. But you will need to get one of those memory sticks. They became fitted as standard on the 2021 cars, but anything before that, just pop that into the USB drive, format it, and it will save. Let's quickly cover the topic of autopilot because it causes some confusion. The cars are standard with the Model 3 ever since they've been in the UK will come with a basic version of autopilot. It will keep the car a regular distance from the vehicle in front with radar, and it will keep the car in its lane. However, if you indicate to change lane or forcibly change lanes, it will cancel and you have to reset it again. So it's sort of basic version. If you want to have automatic lane change plus some of the extras like summon and self-parking features, on previous Teslas they would be part of the autopilot package, but now they included them in the full self-driving package, which is very expensive. But just recently they've given you the option for enhanced autopilot, which is a bit cheaper and sits in between the two. So you need to check carefully that what the car has is going to meet your expectations. There's a basic autopilot which they all have, and to be honest I think that serves the functionality that we need really today. Then you have enhanced autopilot, so it would do lane changing and give you a few more features. And then the full self-driving package, which is worth a few £1,000s, really is future-proofing the car. So anything that it can do as software evolves, and remember they download data, that car will then have that functionality just depending on local regulations. What I would say is the cars on the used market that have that very expensive full self-driving option, I think become incredibly good value because that was an expensive option to have, and on the used market, although it makes the car a little bit more than one without it, it's certainly not by that full price. So on the used market, full self-driving package is quite a good thing to have, even if all that functionality isn't quite available yet. Let's also just quickly mention premium connectivity. The cars may have a period of free premium connectivity, and that can be from when it was new or since you've just bought it. But actually to have live traffic visualization, karaoke, and some of the music streaming features and video streaming features like Netflix, you will need to either have the car connected to Wi-Fi or subscribe to premium connectivity. At the time of filming this, that's $9.99 a month. I paid for it. I think it's worth it, but just be aware that that's something you may need to take into account. We'll quickly mention free supercharging. There was no free supercharging on the Model 3, non-transferable, never had it. The only free supercharging you can get is where you earn yourself some free supercharging by sharing your referral code, for example. So if you use my referral code in the link below, I'll get some free supercharging in my account. So it is possible to have some. However, it's not too expensive. Prices do vary slightly. The cars do have a standard CCS rapid connection, so you can also make use of third-party charging networks like Shell Recharge, BP Pulse, InstaVolt, for example. So there's a few options out there, and charging isn't typically too expensive at all. If you are thinking of taking the car for a track day, they're very capable. I've done it myself, extremely quick. You can come out of a chicane and make a BMW M3 look like it's parked. And you can actually do a few laps with the battery and rapid charge at lunch break. They're pretty good. Interestingly, with the newer version of track mode, version 2 that's out now, you can actually adjust the handling balance, rear wheel drive, front wheel drive, how much stability, how much regenerative braking. And it shows you some good little graphics for brake temperature and battery temperature. So they're very capable track cars. Okay, let's get on to the nitty-gritty of the problems, what to look out for on a used car in particular, or just if you own one. So the cars have a full warranty until 4 years or 50,000 miles. After that, the motors, the drivetrain is included, but other little things will be excluded. And this is one of the most common problems, water in the tail lights. So a little bit of misting in the corner occasionally is fine, but this one clearly has water inside the lens and this backlight needs changing. On the test drive, not too much to be concerned about. Check for any vibrations from either drivetrain or any potentially buckled wheels. One common little thing, if you can hear, there's a slight squeak in the steering. Can sometimes be fixed just with a little bit of lubricant down here, but if it persists, then it would need to be looked at. The Model 3 has this huge glass roof. Now, there was a batch of these where they seemed a bit faulty and it can have cracks suddenly appear in it for no reason. Most of those have now been resolved. I think it was one batch of glass, but it's worth just checking that the glass is free of any cracks and damage. Granted, this isn't the easiest point to check on the cars, but right under here in the middle, there's a fiberboard panel that's easily damaged, ripped off, or missing. Basically, usually caused by driving through a big puddle. Interestingly, the very latest cars now have a harder piece for that, so that's been updated. And hopefully, even the older cars, if it ever needs changing, the newer piece gets put in. But if you can, look underneath, or have somebody like us check it over for you. One of the main important things to check on a used car is the paint, especially along the seals and at the back here. We have seen some cars just being very prone to stone chipping under here and this section here. This particular car has had a PPF film applied, and we can help you with that if you want it. We really recommend it. It really protects the paintwork from stone chips and debris that can come off of the road and very easily make the car look tatty. So we mentioned that the paint under here can suffer on some examples. A lot of owners have fitted mud flaps. Tesla then started including a mud flap kit in the newer cars, so you may see small black mud flaps here or colour-coded versions which are really cheap and easy to find online. Check around the car for fairly consistent panel gaps and alignment. Now, there are variances. Tesla panel gaps aren't as tight as perhaps an Audi or new Mercedes, but it should be fairly even and consistent. Ideally, you'd have something like this to check paint thickness, which is something we do, to look for any signs of previous repair. I think we will see more cars, especially the performance ones, extremely fast cars, unfortunately suffering some damage and accidents and possibly then being repaired and back on the road. So be careful. If you're not too sure or you're not buying from somewhere that knows Teslas like we do, just make sure you look really carefully for any signs of previous accident damage and repairs. With many EVs, we normally say, have a good look at the brakes, not usually because of wear, but actually through lack of use. people just don't use the brakes as much because of the regen effect from the motors, and that can cause the disc to corrode and even calipers to seize. Doesn't seem to be as much of a problem on the Model 3s. You can see a little bit of scoring on the disc from sort of grit in the pads, but actually with the Model 3s, when it's wet, the car, without you knowing it, actually dabs the brakes to keep the brakes clean and dry and working effectively. So it means they actually seem to get a little bit of use even if you don't know it. So I think we're going to wrap it up about here. I've tried to cover a bit of the history and explain some of the different versions of the car. There's not too many, and we have covered those in the other videos, like we say. In terms of the problems, well, not too many really. And if you buy from a good source, a good dealer like ourselves, then I think anything would be picked up and highlighted and dealt with. But they're proven to be extremely reliable cars and a good purchase, either new or on the used market. Of course, if you have any questions, do feel free to ask. We'll always try and help out. There's only so much we can remember and cover in a video like this, but we're always happy to try and answer any questions you may have. So for now, we're going to call it a day here, wrap things up. Do make sure you're following us on our Facebook and Instagram pages at R. Simons Ltd, and you'll see a bit more about what we do on a daily basis. But for now, thank you for watching.